Hi, I'm Maciej, I'm a software engineer. The test-driven development belongs to the extreme programming family of techniques. It was a hot topic some time ago, and it allowed many teams to improve the quality of their work. In this video, I will show you why, still, it was a bad idea. So the general idea was that the code needs to be tested. But testing is an activity that the management never appreciated, and engineers were too lazy to do it correctly anyway. So frequently it was not done at all. So somebody, in the spirit of extreme, somebody proposed to give it more visibility, to actually make it more important than the code itself. In this new extreme approach, a single development cycle for a given user story or a requirement looked like this. Write the test, demonstrate that it fails, develop just enough code to make the test pass, and refactor to keep everything in shape. The benefit of this approach was that there was no way to neglect the testing. Testing was at the very beginning of every development cycle, so all user stories had their tests. And since the only code that was written was just enough to make the test pass, all code was tested, or at least most of it. Of course, this approach requires some discipline, but if applied consistently, it can provide a reasonable structure for the development work. Everything looks good so far. So what's the problem? The problem is exactly in the structure that promotes the test to the level where it becomes more important than the actual code. Suddenly, it's not the user story which drives the development of the code, but the test, which might or might not reflect exactly what the original user story was about. In other words, the distance between user story and the code became longer. Let's see what might go wrong. If there is a bug in the code, the test will fail and the programmer will debug the code and will fix it. This is okay. But what if the programmer misunderstood the original user story or requirement? And what if he made a bug in the test unit itself? There is nothing that could draw his attention to the test, which is where there is the source of the problem. Even in this unfortunate case, the programmer will do what he usually does. He will debug the code and will modify it so that it matches the test unit. And he will commit it as a successful work item. The idea that test is more important than code is what breaks the proper flow. The original problem was that tests were considered unimportant, but making them more important than the code itself is not a good solution either. So let's give them equal rights. Let's develop test units from the original user stories, and let's develop the code from the same user stories directly. It doesn't really matter which will be developed first. The only thing that is important is that they should have equal rights. Equal rights means that if the test fails, we do not assume automatically that the code is wrong and needs to be fixed. We cannot assume anything. The only thing we know is that something is wrong. And then we should investigate both sides, and we should fix the one that contains the error with the user story or requirement as the ultimate reference. It is still possible that the programmer will make the same kind of mistake in both the test and the code, and they will match each other and the test will pass. We can make it a lot less probable if we assign these tasks to two independent developers. That is, one developer writes the test and another one writes the code. They can change these roles between user stories. There is no need for these roles to be permanent. But the fact that they work independently can minimize the common mode of their mistakes. Note that there is no additional work to do. The amount of work is exactly the same. It's the organization of work that needs to change. So in principle, there is no additional price to be paid for this improvement. So was test-driven development a really bad idea? No, I wouldn't say so. For those development teams that started with a very low verification culture, the test-driven development allowed them to really improve the quality of their work. So in this sense, it had a positive role in the industry. But there is an opportunity for improvement, and the independence of coding and testing is something that we should be aiming for. I'm Maciej, I'm a software engineer. Write some good code and see you next time. I mean, write some good code with independent test units and see you next time.